today's episode of The Vegan Gypsy, I'm going to be making tofu and green olive empanadas. Everyone loves empanadas. I've made these quite a few times trying to get it right, and I've finally gotten it right. So I can't wait to show you what we're making today. For the pastry, we'll need 2 cups all-purpose flour, 1/4 cup of cornmeal, 2 tablespoons sugar, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon baking powder, 1/2 cup of vegan butter, and 2 teaspoons of distilled white vinegar. On top of that is a little bit of cold water. Preheat the oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Combine the flour, cornmeal, sugar, salt, and baking powder in a large mixing bowl. So the next thing we need is 1/2 cup of very cold water with 1 ice cube, and that does the trick. Then we will mix in the vinegar. With that, let it sit a little bit before we add it to the dry ingredients. Cut in the butter until the dough is crumbly and pebbly, just like you would when you're making pie crust. I just use a really big fork and kind of mash it in until it looks all crumbly. Okay, that looks good. So we're gonna add the cold water and vinegar in 3 batches. This is looking like a really good consistency. I made these the other day and it was a little dry, so if you need 1/4 cup more water, just add that now. Gather the dough into a ball and knead very gently a few times until it's perfect. Cover with plastic wrap and refrigerate for at least an hour. For the filling, we'll need 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 1 small white onion, diced, 2 jalapeños, coarsely diced, 2 cloves of garlic, minced, 1 tablespoon of smoked paprika, 2 teaspoons of ground cumin, 1 teaspoon oregano, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1 pound firm tofu, 1 tablespoon nutritional yeast, 2 tablespoons of scallions, finely chopped, and 1/2 cup of green olives. I have 2 different kinds because I couldn't find pitted plain green olives that were fresh. So I got stuffed. This one is stuffed with jalapeno. So again, it goes with it all, adds a little bit. And this is stuffed with red pepper. So I'm using 1/4 cup of each, 1/2 cup of chopped green olives. Preheat a large skillet over medium-high heat and saute the onions and jalapeños in the olive oil for 5 to 7 minutes until they're soft. Add the garlic to the pan and saute for a minute more. It's amazing how good this smells even before the spices. Add the paprika, cumin, oregano, and salt. Add the tofu and stir. Add the nutritional yeast and stir. Add the scallions and green olives and heat through. If the mixture looks a little dry, add a few splashes of water. Turn off the heat and get back to the dough. Grease a baking sheet and set it aside. Like every good cooking show, I have prepared dough already in the fridge. It has not been an hour. It won't take you an hour to do the filling, so you're gonna have to wait a little longer. But I made this earlier, so we're ready to go. It's nice and firm. I'm gonna use corn flour to roll it out, but you can use all-purpose, you can use whatever, but I just like that extra corn flavor. You can actually make the whole thing with corn flour, that would be fine. I've never done that, surprisingly. A lot of people give exact measurements of how you should roll it out, but I just think like the size of a large pizza is a good size. And then you put the scraps together and roll it out again. It makes about 12 empanadas, but you could easily make more. I just don't like them too thin because then they're hard to put together. All right, that looks like a large pizza to me. So I have an empanada tool. If you don't, you can use anything in a circular shape about 4.5 inches wide. But this thing makes it really easy. It was very cheap. I just found it at some cooking store and I've been using it ever since. I use it for pierogies, even raviolis sometimes. Place about 2 tablespoons of filling in the middle of the circle and gently fold to make them into half moons. The filling should be about a ½ inch from the edge. Pinch together the seams with a fork or whatever you have and place on the baking sheet. Continue forming the rest of the empanadas. If your dough seems a little moist, just put a little bit of flour so it doesn't stick to the edges when you try to take it off. Bake for 25 to 30 minutes until golden brown and serve warm.